Welcome to Degree Meet, where we highlight a specific major each week. I'm your host, Christabel, and today's major is Film and Television with Professor Cantrell and current student Nay Redic. Thank you for joining us today, guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
happy to be here.
Okay, so how long have you been here with Sam Houston State University, Professor?
I think this is my 5th full year, maybe my 4th full year. Yeah, next fall I think will be my 5th year.
Okay, so what led you here?
That is a very complicated question. I was in another master's program at a different university and I didn't like it, so I withdrew from there and then applied here and got accepted. So I started off as a grad student, but I very, very quickly moved into the instructor role.
Okay, so right after you graduated?
You mean from the graduate program?
Mm-hmm.
No, even before. I was a full-time instructor while I was still a student, too.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
How was the application process for that?
For here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you put your name on the paper, and then they write. It was pretty straightforward. You just had to make clear what your intentions were, why you wanted to pursue the program. So,
okay. Pretty simple. Nay, what year is it for you here at SAM?
I am currently a senior here at SAM.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how's it been so far in the BA program?
It's been pretty good. I honestly have nothing bad to say. It's been probably one of the most fun times of my life, for sure.
Yeah, we paid her a lot of money.
Okay, Mr. Control, where all did you go to college and what did you major in?
I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I studied radio, television, film. Then I did a master's degree at Baylor, and then I did the second master's degree here.
Okay.
So.
What exactly were they? Like what programs?
So UT was RTF, which is radio, television, film. At Baylor, I studied theology. And here I did digital media, which was our MA, not the MFA. So it's primarily focused on research, but just like the RTF program at UT, it's sort of a split. You do research and methods, but you also do practical production stuff, the technical stuff behind the camera. So kind of a mixed bag of academics and then sort of like the profession of filmmaking and television.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nay, what attracted you to this major?
That is also a kind of a longer answer, but
Go for it.
one of the main things that attracted me to be a film major was probably representation. Growing up, like as a black female and like as a black person in general, not seeing a lot of positive representation in the media for people who looked like me, and so there's like. It's really cliche, but it's like a quote. It's like if you want to see change, if you don't see the change you want, you have to be the change you want. So I definitely wanted to create a space where marginalized groups and people felt more seen in the media in more positive lights. So that's definitely what attracted me to film.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah. So, Professor Cantrell,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any outside experience in this field besides school?
Yes. So in between my undergraduate degree and pursuing the 2 master's degrees, I did independent filmmaking. So the first sort of professional projects that I did were documentary-based. Actually, I dropped out of UT about halfway through, and I took like a year where I just went and made documentary films. So the first one I did was about Occupy Wall Street, and later just simply Occupy. It was sort of a social protest, not too dissimilar from what you've seen in the media the last several months. It was slightly less organized, though. There wasn't like a central, I guess, social purpose behind it. It was kind of like a collective, so a bunch of political ideologies kind of just getting together and having their voice heard.
Oh, wow.
So I did that project, which took about 6 months. I was traveling between Austin at the time and Washington, D.C., and then New York City were kind of the 2 hot spots for those protests. And we the group that I took with me, the sort of the production team, we kind of like camped out with them, I guess. They were, the whole idea of Occupy was they were going to occupy public spaces, so they would go and like make little small cities, little tent cities, and sort of just like occupy the public space so that they could create awareness through their physical presence. I think, tracking back, it was something to do with the 1%. It was kind of like one of the main protests was about the financial markets and stuff. So there was some sort of central purpose, I guess. Yeah. So I did that for 6 months, and then I flew to Kenya and did another documentary. And that one was completely unrelated, but.
Oh, okay. So when you say you filmed a documentary, was it like with a job, or it was just you, or what? Who'd you do it with?
It was privately funded. In fact, I don't actually remember the investor. The big sob story behind the whole thing is that those whole 6 months that I was gone, I collected all the footage. I was kind of living out of my backpack and camping on the street with the other protesters and stuff. And the whole time, like all my equipment, my laptop, my camera, everything was safe. Nobody ever took anything from me while I was like in that environment. But as soon as I got back home to Austin, somebody broke into my car and stole like the entirety of my footage. So I never got to edit that film and finish it. And that's why I went back to school. So I was already kind of working professionally, and then I had that sort of trauma incident, and I was like, well, I don't have anything to work with now. And obviously my investors were disappointed, although they were actually understanding. They didn't really hold me over the fire or try to get their money back or anything. But it was really disappointing experience. So that's when I returned back to school. And while I was there, I worked on short films. I worked on a couple feature-length films. I did music videos. I've done commercials. So basically from that point on, I just kept working, whether independently or through sort of just freelance opportunities and stuff. So yeah, more than school. In Austin, the environment's a little bit easier. Once you have some buddies graduate and go through the program, they'll kind of let you tag along and you can get paid. And so yeah, I have about 10 years of experience total filmmaking.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So did those freelance opportunities, did they like find you, or how'd you find those?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty passive. I didn't really go out there and pursue it. I'm not quite, I don't have that hustle mentality when it comes to filmmaking. A lot of times I find that people just like in the general consumer market don't know the value of production work, so they don't know what to pay you. And it gets really hostile really quickly because oftentimes they just don't want to pay you. So if I had an opportunity that was sort of more secure, that I knew the people involved, it was a bigger project, and I knew I could collect financially, then I would jump on board. But I wasn't out there like trying to just make $100, $200 projects for, small businesses and stuff like that. Yeah, I kind of only worked with mid-grade productions, 15, 20 people on the set, guaranteed pay. I really didn't get out there and kind of try and do the one-man filmmaking thing. Yeah.
So do you suggest people take every opportunity that they can, or kind of just beware?
Ooh, I don't actually. Yeah, I don't suggest that because you can burn out really quick. I think depending on your personality type, some people, they can't resist. They have to do something. And, more power to them. If you're equipped to do that, then by all means, go get it. But for me, and I think for a lot of others, there's so many different roles that can be filled in production, whether it be television or film or just, general media stuff like YouTube. There's plenty of opportunities. You don't have to force yourself into a situation and think that you have to do all of those things. It certainly helps if you have a little knowledge of everything, but yeah, I would say that I try to stay pretty objective when I'm encouraging my students. Like if it's a good opportunity, take it. But if it seems sketch, don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
Because the ramifications can be a nightmare. And like I said, you can get burned out really, really quickly. So maybe that's bad advice, but that's what I think.
So for a student like me I'm graduating in August, and I want to move out to Austin because I've just heard there's a lot of opportunities and stuff out there for mass comm. Do you recommend that, or what do you think?
I would say it's probably best to try and find an internship ahead of time, or at least find something that you can pay rent with. But I know, like, the legend goes that people move there and then they find the job and they get lucky. So I think both can happen, but yeah, I guess to be more instructive, it's like, yeah, go find a job first and then move once you know that you can pay rent. But Austin does have a lot more opportunities for film, probably. Although Houston does too, it's just more commercial. You're going to be doing primarily commercial stuff for bigger companies. So it may be slightly more professional in that regard, but it's not usually filmmaking proper. So it kind of depends on what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Nate, do you plan on doing anything with this degree?
Yeah, kind of like what you and Hunter were just talking about. I also kind of planned on moving out to Austin just because that is one of the best places to be in Texas, at least for film. But I definitely want to get into either, I'm actually in one of Hunter's classes, so I've kind of fallen in love with producing.
I
So
know, right?
Yeah, so I kind of want to keep pursuing that, learn as much as I can about that, maybe pursue that in the future, or also get into editing.
Okay, for like another company?
Yeah, I really like doing like media relations type stuff, so also doing commercial work and everything like that. But I also really like the film aspect of a little bit more than that. So.
Gotcha. And you work on your own films now, correct? Mm-hmm. How is that going?
It's a struggle, but everything good comes after a struggle. So like I'm not complaining about it at all.
What do you think you've learned from it? Like, have you learned to like socialize or like be more assertive, or like what have you learned from it?
I've definitely learned to be more assertive. I am still pretty a passive person, but in the process of creating my own films and being a part of these classes that have put me in positions of leadership, it's definitely forced me to be more assertive and be more and kind of take charge more, and in a respectful way, of course, but be more of that person who can get things done when it needs to get done.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I've learned the same things. It's hard. It's like you get to work with other people, and sometimes it's a blessing. It's like, I love that, and it was so much fun. And then sometimes it's a little harder, but it's stretching.
Oh,
it
yeah,
definitely is.
for sure.
So, Professor Cantrell, what's the difference between the BA in film and the BFA in film and television?
So the BFA program, you can apply and get accepted for your first or second semester. I think they give you 1 or 2 semesters. But then at the end of those semesters, you have to do another application that's sort of like I think they call it a review, but it's essentially a portfolio of your work. So you can either do it immediately, like when you first apply to SAM, if you've done some film work and you want to show that off, then you can apply directly. But you don't have to. So they give you a little bit of leeway. But the primary difference is just really with the instructors, they encourage us to essentially be a little harder on the BFA students, to have higher expectations, to push them. And there's just a few differences in the actual education, though. The courses are pretty much the same. You get excused from a couple of the core curriculum classes, I think, taking the BFA as opposed to just the regular BA. So some of the stuff I think you get to skip on some of the other core classes that
I know you don't
aren't
have
to
to
do
take a
with film.
language.
You don't have to take language?
If you're in the BFA, you don't have to take a language.
Oh, that's nice. I had to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, I had to do that in fact, actually, I don't have a BA or a BFA. Mine's a BS. I have a Bachelor of Science in Film.
Really?
Yeah.
From
yeah.
UT?
Uh-huh. Yeah, UT, they have a Bachelor of Science. So, kind of a mixed bag.
What are some of the most interesting aspects of film, you think?
Who's that for, me or her?
Sorry, it was for you.
For me? Interesting aspects of film. How very vague. I guess I can bounce off of what the two of you were talking about in regards to sort of collaboration. Like it can be an extremely rewarding experience when you have the right team and everyone's contributing. It's almost like magic when a project comes together at the end. To have everybody's little influences involved the entirety of the way through. It's kind of spectacular when you get to the final product and, you know, things went well. I would say that was one of the things that was most interesting to me as a student when I was working in film, was like, it is sort of the most collaborative environment you could have in a career, I guess you could say. But on the same hand, you know, if you get stuck with some people that, you know, are not motivated or disinterested or just hostile for whatever reason, personality-wise, then it burns you out really quickly, and you're like, oh, this is the worst field to be in. So it's really a polarizing spectrum. Aside from that, I just think as an art form, there's so many like foundational media that sort of, I guess, add to what we do as filmmakers. So, you know, you're pulling inspiration as far back as, you know, early portraiture and painting and sound mixing. Like, you're taking all these little elements from other art forms and you're adding them to one final product. And so again, the sort of collaborative nature of filmmaking was interesting, not just from the people perspective, but from the arts perspective as well. I found myself being like really snooty, I guess, as an art student, so I thought that was, you know, a cool thing. It was like, oh yeah, well, we're the best of all the arts because we are all the arts. You've got music, you've got paintings, you've got acting, you know, it just brings together a lot of different artistic fields into one.
So I have another question for you. So when someone's graduating, what do you think they should have done? Like a portfolio, a social media?
Yeah, so no, but by far, the thing that you can have done is work to show. If you go through your whole film career and you've kind of just learned, your opportunity in the job market is next to none. Because the first thing that companies want to see is your reel. They want to see what you've done. And they want to see also that you've been in leadership positions, meaning that you've kind of taken on the majority of the project, whether that meant you were the producer, the director, the cinematographer, or the editor. You need to have done several of the primary roles, at least for your reel. If you want to focus on one thing, then by all means, you know, if you were the cinematographer for every single project, that's fine. But you need to have the work done. You need to have something to show. If you graduate from a film program or a television program and you don't have that sort of physical product to take to employers, then you really didn't get your money's worth, and you should consider, you know, if that's really what you want to do. And if you get to that point, the odds are it's probably not. And you have to be honest with yourself, because you had, you know, 4 years to create something, and if you didn't have that sort of kick or spur to like push you to create something, you're probably not going to find it, you know, later down the line to say that, oh yeah, no, this is really what I want to do. That's a lot of time for exposure, and I think the ones that gravitate towards, like I said, they sort of can't resist creating. It's going to be no problem for them, but there are some students that get into film, they find it interesting, but they never really put in the work. They're always observing, and it's a lot harder to find a career after college if you just spent your whole time observing and didn't get involved and actually create something. Several things, hopefully, several things.
So a reel is, what exactly is that?
Say again?
What is a reel?
Well, a reel in film is basically a supercut of your collected work. It's just like the best moments maybe from all the stuff that you've done. Yeah, it's not more complicated than that.
Okay, so you suggest we have like a reel and like a resume or like a binder?
Yeah, truly the reel is the most important thing. Just a collection of work that you can show, that when people say like, hey, what do you want to do? You can show them what you've done. You don't get, at that point, you know, when you graduate, and employers in general, they no longer want to hear what you want to be. They want to know who you are and what you've done. So to say, as a senior, I want to be a filmmaker, is a little problematic, because you should be able to confidently say at that point, I am a filmmaker. This is what I've done. Now, it doesn't have to be the best necessarily, but if you can own that or accept that and acknowledge that you've done the work and that you are who you say you are, then that speaks volumes. But yeah, by far the most important thing, more than a resume, I think more than even an internship, is absolutely being able to show that you've done the work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the first thing that's going to be on those applications, is we need to see a reel. And everything else probably, in my opinion, is secondary, because if you can show them that you can make something, then
Can execute.
yeah, then you can get the job. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a skill-based medium. So. That's
Gotcha.
why at UT we have a BS instead of a BA or a BFA. Is that the idea is that there is a science behind it. There's a method to the madness. It's not magic. That there is form, and you can study that and apply it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So, Nay, what's your favorite part of this major?
Kind of piggybacking off of what Hunter was saying, just being put into all of these different projects and allowing yourself to be creative, and having all these, they're assignments, but in a way they're giving you a chance to create something for you to put on your reel, so that you have something to present to people when you want a job. So that's definitely like my favorite part, is being able to be put in these positions in order to not only make myself better as a filmmaker and as a person, but also give myself something that I can present later on after I graduate, so I can continue getting better and continue excelling in the craft that I want to excel in.
Gotcha. What challenges have you experienced doing that?
Definitely, I've had to learn more about how to be patient, not only with the people I'm working with, but also with myself, because I understand that I'm not always going to be perfect now. So I have to be able to kind of take a step back and laugh at myself in a way sometimes, because I have to realize oh, if we're blocking something, it might look dumb the first time you do it, but after you think about it and make it better, it'll start looking better and better. So if you do something once and you realize it's not good, you fix it and do better. That's one of the main things that I would have trouble with, is just being patient with myself. I used to be really hard on myself for that kind of stuff, but now looking back on it and looking forward to more times where I can be hard on myself sometimes, because I know that at the end of the day I'm going to get it right. So.
Gotcha. And what advice would you give someone with this major?
Talk to your professors. A lot of times film professors can be a little intimidating, because you're oh, sometimes I used to think that, because I'm oh, what if this is a dumb question, or oh, what if they talked about this in class and I just forgot, or something like that. So, but I've kind of gotten out of that. So just talk to your professors, especially when you, if you're using gear that you kind of don't understand how to use, ask them how to use it so you don't break something. Or if you want to help make a story better and you just need a little advice, ask them and they will help you excel so your story makes sense. Don't distance yourself from your professors just because you want to feel more independent. Get that get that sense of security, and then be independent. So that way you know exactly what you're doing.
Gotcha.
I think you took my screenwriting class, right? I think I saw that from you in my screenwriting class. At first, you were quite timid, maybe even disappointed when I would give feedback. And it was probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you were operating from this sort of idea of like, I want to get it right the first time. But one of the things I stress, and that we should always stress in film school, but it's a lot easier to do in screenwriting, is that it's all about the rewrite. You're not going to create the final product on the first run.
Yeah.
And so the emphasis, and you were in that class as well, the emphasis there is like, if you bring me something and I give you a lot of criticism, that's a good thing. That means there's something to work with. You should be scared if I have nothing to say, because then there's nothing for me to improve.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And a special thanks to Professor Cantrell and Nate for showcasing this department. Tune in next time when we sit down with Department Chair Dr. Clevenger to highlight victim studies. And remember, education is key, so do it right with Degree in Me.